All right, greetings and salutations, everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host once again, Dan Thornton. Hey, not a great game from the Detroit Lions. Want to jump on, talk about a little bit post-game show, but as soon as I got off air, I checked my phone, and no joke, over 40-some-odd messages. Fire John Morton. You're far enough into the season where you would think a coach new to the team or otherwise would probably have a pretty good idea about what they have to work with as far as the offensive line, the running backs, the wide receivers, whatever you want to list. I know those watching the live cast had a lot of deep dive thoughts about the Detroit Lions, about the OC, about the offensive line, how the receivers were or weren't used, and then, yes, the running back tandem. If you're watching it, I gave my thoughts as a coach, what I saw out there, and here's what I can say. After the first drive by the Detroit Lions, Minnesota, Brian Flores said, you know what? I don't care if you're going to use Gibbs or not. We're going to put him there, and we're going to make him go to his weaknesses. They kept on any kind of second or third and long situation, blitzing the middle of the field, making Gibbs have to pick it up. And if you watch the game with your own eyes, you probably saw Gibbs struggles with blitz pickups against much larger linebackers. It put the Lions in a bad way early, often, and repeatedly until the fourth quarter. John Morton did not seem to have any kind of answers for it. MCDC and the Detroit Lions, for the second straight time they faced a bye and came out and played against a rookie quarterback, have failed. And yes, I do count J.J. McCarthy as a rookie quarterback since he didn't really play last year. As we all know, with the playoff loss last year, Jaden Daniels came to play. And yes, the Lions were not great out of the bye. This is an alarming trend for the Detroit Lions, who were beat up going into the bye. We all get it. Coming out today, though, after one game after the bye week, we could argue they're more beat up now than they were before the bye. What do you do if you're the head coach of the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell? Because it might not have to wait until Monday to be overreaction time. Lions' offensive line is not looking great. The offensive play calling is not looking great. So many of you watching the show, the live stream, were jumping up and down about yet another screen pass to wide receiver or running back that went for a loss. It's almost as if Morton, Dan Campbell, whoever you want to point a finger at, had no game plan or idea whatsoever what the Minnesota Vikings were going to do in this game on the defensive side. Anybody who has watched the NFL for the last 10 years has understood what Brian Flores does. If you watch the game, he did exactly what he's done over that last decade. And the Lions offensive coordinator, the offensive line, the running backs, the wide receivers, Jared Goff, throw everybody under the bus because it's probably that kind of a day. The Lions laid an egg. The defense, while not great, didn't play terrible, and unfortunately, they could not bail out a Detroit Lions offense that might as well stayed on the bye week. What are your guys' thoughts about John Morton this far into the season? Well, a lot of us after week one probably felt like he was in over his head. Then the Lions went on a bit of a winning streak, put up a bunch of points. We said, maybe it was just week one. Maybe because the Lions don't really play people in the preseason, that could be a factor. But now we've talked about it on the morning show. We've talked about it on a number of videos. You're starting to see an emerging trend with John Morton and this Detroit Lions offense. They seem to be going in reverse a whole lot. The running game, it doesn't seem like many teams are having as big a problem shutting it down when they have to rely on it so much. The running game today was non-existent almost until the fourth quarter when Dave Montgomery came off the bench and got out there. Dave Montgomery, I understand he had a big fumble. It was a massively big fumble, but he was able to get something going on the ground where clearly Gibbs was not against the physical Minnesota Vikings defense, who was committed to being more physical than the Detroit Lions. They simply had more grit today. The only saving grace, I know a lot of you guys will point it out, is that Green Bay lost today. So now you've got, I believe, Green Bay, Detroit, and the Chicago Bears with your former OC all sitting there at 5-3. Who would have thunk it at the start of the year? What do you think needs to happen? A lot of people watching the game calls, the live cast, what do you want to say, said that, hey, Dan Campbell needs to assume command of the Detroit Lions offense at this point. I might agree. I'm an idiot on YouTube who's done some coaching, and I could see the issues with the play calling out there, and we were talking about it live on air. Anytime Gibbs is out there on second or third and long, the Minnesota Vikings were committed to sending dual linebackers up the middle, knowing one of them would get a one-on-one opportunity with Gibbs because that's just how Detroit's blocking assignments were coming up over and over again, and Gibbs did not seem interested in blocking anybody for any kind of length of time. Jared Goff did not have a great game, but I know some will say, man, you flustered Goff. He's not going to do well. He's going to break down. I would say this. Any NFL quarterback struggles with pressure up the middle. You can have your own opinion. My thoughts are the Lions are in a real bad way because that offensive line is beat up badly. At least I don't know as time I went on air here what's going on with Christian Mahogany, but the fact that he had to be wheeled off the field is not a good look. Tate Ratledge, you guys all know he had to leave the game with the injury. Taylor Decker getting back from injury, left the game from injury. Maybe that's John Morton's saving grace is that if you don't have an offensive line, you can't do much on offense. I'll say this, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, all parties involved. If you want to turn this thing around, I think Tuesday's trade deadline at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time just became even bigger. Dan Skipper did not play bad, in my opinion. Snaps, he was out there. Lions going to need some more offensive line help. And then it becomes a question. Duke Crew, as you can tell for the thumbnail for this show, what do you do with John Morton? His play calling, and I'm trying to be as fair as I can be while also telling you guys my honest thoughts. He is damn conservative. If it's 4th and 59, he's throwing a 2-yard check down pass to try to get 3 or 4 yards, say, hey, at least we got a little bit closer. Repeatedly throughout the game, anytime the Lions faced some longer situations, it was check down city, and no, that wasn't on Goff. It were designed play calls to get to Gibbs or, St. Brown or J-Mo behind the line of scrimmage and hope they could shake and bake, I guess, to get 3 or 4 yards. Even late in the game, the Lions down 10, fighting the clock. You guys all saw the miscommunication, the disorientation when they were trying to get to the 2-minute warning. The fact that they killed 20-some-odd seconds to get to the 2-minute warning and seemed to have no ideas what to do when fighting the clock, trying to preserve time. That's on, I will say this, it's on Morton, it's on Goff, and it's on Dan Campbell. Who's going to fall on the sword with that one in the presser today, tomorrow? I don't know, but I'm not going to throw a lot of stuff at Kelvin Shepard. I was not impressed with the defense overall today, but they played good enough to win. The special teams is another problem for the Detroit Lions. Throughout the season, the Lions have given up on kickoffs, big returns. The Vikings should have had, in my opinion, 2 touchdowns today. One was wiped off by a penalty. The other one, sometimes you get lucky and get a tackle when you maybe shouldn't have. The Lions, though, they're in the heat of the NFC North. They're right there with the Packers, but they're going to have to get a whole lot of answers going forward. For those who are saying there's no way you're going to fire an offensive coordinator during the season, go back to MCDC's very first year here in Detroit. Anthony Lynn, a longtime friend, close friend of MCDC, is relieved of duties or at least given a reassignment, which is basically saying you're fired, but you still get a paycheck in the coaching community. And he was given some other assignment up in the booths or whatever during games while Dan Campbell and eventually Ben Johnson did kind of assume command of the offense. I don't know if Ben Johnson or the next person that could be Ben Johnson is taking over, but the Lions have massive issues in front of them. It started with the Cleveland Browns game, in my opinion, where the Browns started exposing some issues interiorly with the Lions offensive line. And today's game, I think Flores just took it to a whole new level. Said, I'm going to do or die with this scheme because we can't man up and stop all your offensive weapons. Your St. Brown, your Laportas, whatever. You saw what happened the first drive of the game. Laporta chewed them up, had 66 yards on the first drive of the game. So what did Flores do? We're going to go pressing, zone coverage across here. We're going to double team 2 people out wide on St. Brown and Jameson Williams. And you know what? You're going to have to get rid of that ball in a hurry. And Jameson Williams, you know what? You're going to have to win some 2-on-1. Same with St. Brown. You did get some 1-on-1s there. And then, yes, Gibbs, you're going to have to block somebody about 30 pounds heavier, Neil, over and over again. You could see later in the game, he was having some struggles with it. Probably was physically feeling it a little bit, and that impacted his ability to run, catch, etc. The Lions are going to face a whole lot of questions, and we all get it. Next week's game is no treat for it. You get a rematch with a Washington team that is coming in looking to save their season. What are your guys' thoughts on John Morton this far in? I'm guessing most of you are not happy with him based on what's happened with my phone during the game and then the comment section here. My thought is he's dang predictable, dang conservative, and is going to get the Lions killed. He's going to get Jared Goff killed. He's going to probably waste a lot of the Detroit Lions' talented players. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. I'm not trying to come at another coach. I'm just trying to say at some point you are what everybody thought you were. It's trying to re-paraphrase a phrase that you guys probably all know. They are who we thought they are. But anyways, John Morton, he's got to wake up in a hurry or this Detroit Lions offense is going to continue to go in reverse. It's been steadily doing that the last month. Today, you had the Minnesota Vikings expose a whole lot of the play calling issues and maybe a little bit of the offensive line issues the Lions have. And I don't see the Washington Commanders or anybody else on the list popping up changing that. Teams like to copy other teams. You look at the schedule now, this was a big loss for the Lions. Washington Commanders, then you got the Philadelphia Eagles, the New York Giants, Green Bay Packers. You guys all see the list here. Dallas Cowboys, LA, man, it goes on and on. What do? In my opinion, some of you didn't think Brad Holmes was going to have to make a move before Tuesday. That can still be your opinion. Me, the Lions want to get this season. They got to fix that offensive line, and they're going to have to look internally at that head coach, or excuse me, offensive mind coach, offensive coordinator coach, John Morton. I think he might be the next Anthony Lynn. I'm not saying he's in over his head. I'm just saying I don't see anything on the field that makes me feel like this guy has a clue what he's doing. I think that's a strong indication why he did not advance with the Denver Broncos or some of his other steps. I want to say he was with the Jets or Giants. I don't remember off the top of my head, so sorry if I don't have it in front of me, but he stayed 1 year as the offensive coordinator. He is a passive person, and that is reflective on the field. Brian Flores might as well been in his playbook or sitting next to Morton in the press box because you know what? Anytime he tried to call a play, Flores had the answer for it, and he knew the answer before the snap even happened. That's a damning statement for an offensive coordinator in an offensive league where all the rules favor, guess what? The offense. The Minnesota Vikings defense, as slow and lethargic as they are in that secondary, you guys have people out there in walkers, strollers, and they were able to keep up with the Lions' highly skilled offensive attack and owned us. We'll have to see what happens going forward, but this is going to be a long week for the Detroit Lions. In my opinion, you look at this next schedule, you've got to get a win against Washington, Philadelphia, and the New York Giants. If you can do that, then I think you have perhaps the biggest showdown ever in the history of Thanksgiving Day games with that 1 o'clock game against the Green Bay Packers. You get these next three, you set that game, you win against the Packers, you're probably going to win the North, but one never knows. John Morton, I don't think he's getting much sleep tonight. I don't think Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, anyone on that offensive line is getting much sleep tonight because this game wasn't just a stinker. Man, you want to talk about conspiracy theories? I know 95% of the money was on Detroit, and man, Detroit, that Montgomery fumble, the blocked field goal, the misplay after misplay on offense, the bad tackling on defense. These guys were still on spring break or whatever you want to say, the bye week, and there's a whole lot of questions that need to be answered before the Lions take back to the field next week against the Washington Commanders. John Morton, if it's me, I'm giving him the door already. I can only tell you my thought as a commentator, let alone somebody who does coaching. I don't like passive players. I don't like passive coaches. If you're going to be passive, my opinion, you get knocked out. You step in the ring, they ring that bell. Somebody's passive, somebody's aggressive. That aggressive person's going to win far more often than not. John Morton, I think he's showing us after nearly halfway through the season, he's passive. He's going to get Goff killed. He's going to get a lot of these players on offense killed. All right, guys, that's all I got for now for my rant. Let's see what you guys have to say. I'm not going to read through the comment section. My voice is kind of shot after the play-by-play and everything else today, the morning show. Leave me some thoughts. Leave me some comments. I'll get to them, and I'll address them on the morning show. Otherwise, thank you all for all you do, all you watching. Hopefully, you guys have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in the morning on the next Lions Talk Live. Take care, everybody.